Hello everybody. I'm not sure who all is going to jump on with us live today, but I am looking forward to finding out. So, happy Valentine's Day. This is the day we're recording it, which is great. Happy Valentine's Day for everybody out there. I want to take a second real quick and talk about the group itself because we have built such a cool community that I can't help but brag about it a little bit. So, pull out my notes here. All right, our most active day in the group this year, or this last month, we had one day that over 750 people were active in the group. Wild, right? And on that day, the most activity was on a certain post. This post was, have you loved dogs your whole life, or did you grow to love them? And it was such a cool conversation thread that I would like to continue it here. So please feel free in the comments, answer that question. Have you always loved dogs, or did you grow to love them over time? It's fascinating to hear everybody's stories of how they got into this. So, also, because this group is awesome, right? We had 450 comments, 450 comments in the group, and 900 reactions, but 0 rule violations, 0 moderator input needed. This group is full of humans that are trying to learn together and not be dicks, and that is the whole purpose, and it makes me so happy to see high engagement with no increase of issues and conflict and ickiness. Oh, hi Rosie, thanks. I can see comments today. That's fabulous. I hope you're doing well. Okay, we are right now 30 people away from breaking 2.8 thousand members. So we may break 3,000 members this year, which is just absolutely wild. Hey Kristen, hey Lori. Yeah, good humans. So you're only 30 people away from 2.8. We could hit 3,000 this year. I can't believe it. This is just crazy. Personally, in the last month, a little personal update, I had my first presentation at a summit. All right, it was the Sustain Your Passion Summit. And I will put a link to the recordings in the comments when I'm done. So if you guys want to go watch it, you're more than welcome. I did a quick 20-minute presentation on frustration and how that looks and how to work with them, and talked about my spicy dog course. So I will add the comments there. I also had surgery about 2 weeks ago today. I had a full hysterectomy and a bladder sling. So I am on the road to recovery. I am feeling better, but thank you guys for giving me some time over the last week or so as I've been kind of getting my sea legs back. That is enough of the admin stuff. Hi Ellen, nice to see you. Ellen's got a new group. If you're a dog trainer, you need to go join her group. She talks about burnout. It's awesome. Okay, reactivity. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about reactivity. What is reactivity? Reactivity is, for our purposes in our conversation today, a dog who has big feelings about a change. It could be a change in environment. It could be a change in weather. It could be a change in any type of way that you could think of it. Reactivity, if they have big feelings about it, that is what we're doing. Ellen, go ahead and answer Rosie, the group name, and Mary, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Reactivity is big feelings to change. It can be traumatic and it can be genetic. It all depends on the dog, right? So remember that the dog in front of you is the one who decides what is traumatic. I can look at an event and say that was fine, everybody was safe, and that dog can decide for the rest of their life that they are terrified of that thing. I just had an intake yesterday with a dog that got his paw stuck in a grocery cart as a puppy. 3 years old, you still can't touch his foot. No medical damage, no injury, but injury enough to the psyche that you can't touch that foot still. So, keeping that in mind, help yourself kind of relieve. There's a lot of humans that come to me with reactivity and they're like, I caused this, because they see a lot of that from other trainers, and that's just a load of crap, okay? And what else? Reactivity is not a marker. It's not the only marker to consider when you're looking at dogs who cause harm. So I can have a dog who is highly reactive behind a barrier, but totally friendly without a barrier involved. So when I'm talking about reactivity today, I am not talking about dogs with intent to harm. Those dogs also have reactivity, and those dogs are in a different group than what I'll be talking about today. So the dogs I'm talking about today, the protocols I'll be talking about today, are for dogs that have zero intent to harm. That piece is really important to kind of pull out here, all right? Now, when we are dealing with a reactive dog, usually we're looking at a visual or an audio source of change, right? The trigger is either something showed up in the environment or they heard something down the road. Those are the most common things that show up. It's important also to, I think, remember that reactivity is a display of aggressive behavior. There are a lot of trainers and material out there that likes to separate out reactivity as not an aggressive dog. And that's why at the beginning I talked about intent to harm. Because reactivity is a display of aggression. Just because your dog is aggressive or displaying aggression, it does not mean they are bad dogs. So if we take the moral baggage off of the word aggression and we look at it as this is a dog who is acting in large ways to either close distance or seek distance, that is much easier to process and problem solve than a bad dog who's trying to hurt things. Helpful for my humans, right? If my humans feel safe, they're under threshold enough to learn and to try something. If you really feel like your dog's going to hurt somebody, no amount of training in the world can help you feel comfortable enough to walk that dog. You have to know that you're safe behind the protocols, the management, whatever you need to learn and move on to that next step, right? So the other piece about reactive behaviors is they are what's called inherently reinforcing, meaning they get the cheeseburger all on their own. Whether or not you intervene, you're pretty much irrelevant for a reactive dog in a reactive moment, right? My favorite example is, why do dogs bark at the mailman? Because the mailman always leaves, right? So they have barked and chased away how many mailmen over the years? That's all a whole bunch of cheeseburgers, right? The bikers walking by, anything like that. Those are all inherently reinforcers, and if they get to do the full loop of, I saw the thing, I barked at the thing, and then it left, that loop closes all on its own without you being present. If you are there adding frustration and trying to say leave it and trying to yell with them, you're just adding to the intensity of that loop, right? Again, dogs with reactivity are also dogs that end up usually on the more drivey side of the pendulum, right, between drive and energy. So I like to say that they don't see their human behavior as good and bad, right? That we think that they should know that when I say leave it in this tone that it's bad. They're generally looking at our behavior as big and little. So how far off of your normal state are you behaving? Are you normally a pretty chipper, quick, and speedy person? Great. Then when you start talking to them at that rate, that's normal. But if you are normally a high-paced human, like I am, for example, and then when you're on a walk and you see a trigger, you're like, I'm going super slow. Everything is fine. That is going to freak your dog all the way out. Don't do that. It's not good or bad, big or little. Okay? Lori, I don't know what you got, but yay. Congratulations. That's fabulous. Let me know which part you understood and how you got there. This is good stuff. Okay. I will also put in the comments a link to the video I did. I don't know how far back now, but I did a video on reinforcers and how they work. So if you want to know more about like primary reinforcers and how reinforcers are working in your training, check out that link. So, do a quick summary here. Reactivity, big feelings about change. Usually visual or an audio trigger, all right? And it is also usually self-rewarding. So whatever you do, they're still getting the cheeseburger if they get to complete that loop, right? Now let's move into the common types of reactivity. There are lots of different types, so I have made large umbrella topics to cover these all under for us today. This is not by any means an extensive list, all right? So we've got barriers. Now, when I first started training and I thought about barriers, it was a very narrow definition of barrier. So I want you to expand your definition of barrier to mean anything that is limiting the agency of space. A leash, a door, a window, a fence line. What else did I write over here? That was all that I wrote. Anything like that is a barrier. A crate. Are you talking about reactivity without aggression or just reactivity and aggression? Not sure which part you're talking about there, Rosie. I'll circle back to that question though at the end to make sure you kind of remind me. So Common types, barrier. Barrier is anything that closes agency of space. There's also storm reactivity, right? Dogs that have big feelings, they shut down, they shake, they puke when there's storms outside. There's also greeting. I like to pull greeting out of barriers because there are some dogs who, once the barrier is removed, they are still really amped up during greetings. It's the actual transition of greeting somebody that is causing the reactivity. So pulling those two pieces apart is really important. We can have greeting reactivity and we can have barrier reactivity. When we have greeting reactivity, this is a dog who generally doesn't know how to process novelty stimulus. Okay? And then prey drive. Prey drive happens. We all know that dogs have prey drive. If you want to know more about prey drive, I do have a podcast that Jade and I did with Tracy McLennan. Great stuff. Really helpful if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of what prey drive is and how it's reinforcing. So, your dog can have multiple types of reactivity. They don't necessarily just have the one. It's not usually just storm anxiety. Usually it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You get a nice big combo platter, okay? Treatment. What do we do? So we've identified, yes, I have a dog that is big feelings to change. They don't like seeing or hearing change, and it's around barriers, storms, greeting, and or prey drive. We know this. What are we going to do about it? I like taking a well-rounded or a multi-prong approach. I want you to think of this as the difference between a behavior consultant and an obedience trainer. Obedience trainer does a fabulous job at saying, when I do X behavior with my body, when I say X thing out of my mouth, dog has anticipated behavior to follow. So when I say sit like this, my dog should sit. That is the cue for sitting. We all understand cues and behavior. When working with behavior chains, especially ones that are inherently reinforcing, I want you to think about it as the environmental change is the cue. So the cue of a dog entering the space needs to equal XYZ protocol happening for it to make sense to the dog, right? If we start thinking about it that way, it creates enough pausing moment so that you guys can work together to get through whatever you're working on there. So there's three main things and they all stack up on each other. For some dogs, they need more in different areas. This is why we have to do intakes. This is why every dog is unique. Know your dog. You are your dog's expert. Try something for a week. If after a week you're not really seeing many changes, try something else. It's totally okay to make adjustments. But try something consistently for at least a week before you start making adjustments, or things get really messy really quickly and you don't know what's actually working. So number one, we need management in place. People get really annoyed, really upset. I get some pushback usually when I'm like, okay, your dog barks at the window, let's cover your windows. Let's get some fencing in front of your fences so that they can't reach all the way. And they're like, well, that's not going to fix the problem. Correct, it's not, but it will stop the practice behavior. Management is not used as a forever goal to change behavior. Management is used to limit the amount of practice, limit the level of arousal and intensity that's happening, right? So if my dog goes completely bananas at the window when the mailman is there, and I put a window film up, well, now my dog doesn't get that visual anymore. It's only an audio trigger. So that's half of it cut down. And we can work on that and then slowly build in the visuals in different ways, right? So management equals stopping the practice. It is not the only solution, but it is a very crucial piece, because if they're still getting practice, why would they listen to any other options? Okay. I like to use an extinction burst example here. Think about we're on an elevator. Anybody who's done a session with me knows exactly where I'm going right now. On an elevator, you push the button to close the door, and the door doesn't close right away. Most likely, we have a learning history of pressing that button a million freaking times until the door closes, right? We all know that there are stairs as a choice, but we're gonna do this until we get that door to open. Most of the time, our reactive dogs don't know that the stairs are an option at all. So they're just going to escalate. They're going to drive their head into the wall and keep doing the thing because they don't know there's another option. So first we must decrease the intensity so that they can even acknowledge that there are other options. And what those other options are is a transition. We need a dog to be able to say, that was a thing, and they took a nap. That was a thing. And I did something else. That transition piece is the brain muscle that they usually need the most work in, right? So we are looking to build exposure to novelty and transitions, but not engagement. I want to expose them to new things out in the yard that they don't get to investigate. Just look at it, assess it from way over here. I want to build moments where we're sitting here doing nothing and I go, okay, I'm walking in the other room, and I walk over there and I sit down, and then I walk back into the living room and I sit down. Getting them used to the idea that transitions can happen on a dime and that the only environmental cue they need to pay attention to is me, right? The novelty piece, they can still get exposure and engagement with things that are not scary, but when we're trying to get them used to the idea of a novelty without automatically trying to engage, you're going to see a large chunk of frustration, and it is really important to kind of guide your dog through that. Do not try to distract them through that. So a person who's distracting says, there's something you're scared of. Here, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat this. That's not helping, right? It would be different if I waited for the dog to look at the thing and was like, oh yeah, that's the thing, and I took 3 steps somewhere else before I offered the treat. If I did that every time they looked at the box, they'd be like, great, I'll just look at the box. Great, now you know the stairs are an option. Now you know just looking is an option to get information about a situation. Is that making more sense? I hope. Please put down questions. Let me know if this is making sense to you guys. Okay, management, no practice. Exposure to novelty and transitions so that we can not die when we see something new and go take the stairs instead. And then from there, if our dogs are still struggling, we can add the quote-unquote normal training that you see, the counter conditioning, the desensitization, and or the pattern games. Now, you've heard me say it. I'm going to say it again. The timing is crucial when it comes to counter conditioning and pattern games. You must make sure that the cue to start your treat delivery is your dog noticing the thing. Wait till your dog nose scents. Wait till your dog ear flicks. Wait till your dog acknowledges there's a thing. That is your cue to do something, not just because you saw it. Don't tighten up on your leash, right? It's really common when we have large size difference I see a trigger over there, I'm going to reel in this leash. I'm going to get really tight, and I'm going to get ready because it's a big dog, and you got to be ready sometimes. I challenge my humans to think tight hand, loose leash, and watch the dog. I see a dog over there. My eyes are glued to my dog now. My leash is loose. My hand is tight. As soon as they also see it, I'm treating, and now we're moving. We're going up somebody's driveway, going across some rocks. We are adding distance that our dog is most likely trying to get. Most dogs are looking to increase distance. They're just usually looking to say, I'm uncomfortable, you move, instead of I'm uncomfortable, I'll take the stairs. Okay? Okay. Meds are always something to consider. I'm going to leave it at that. If your dog is on behavior meds, great. If your dog is not on behavior meds, great. If you're not sure if your dog should be, talk to a behaviorist, talk to a veterinary behaviorist, talk to a vet, and see if it's a good option for you. There's a bunch of different things you can do, and I don't want to be giving any type of medical or vet advice on this live today like this. So if you have questions specifically about different meds and stuff, there's a couple of great articles that Lena Kaiser wrote. I know your name, Lena. I'll go ahead and I'll add those two in the comments because she did an excellent job breaking it down. Okay, those are all treatments. 3 main fronts. We're stopping the practice. We are introducing the concept of novelty and transitions, and then we're adding predictability after the trigger. Okay, before, during, after. That is the move. That is what I've seen to be the best bet. Even if you do just 5 minutes a couple times a week at each section, you will see more progress than if you spent a whole week on just one section. Okay, building those foundations together, I like to think about it as building variables into the foundation, is really, really helpful because generally that's the part the dogs are struggling with, right? So when we talk about prognosis, prognosis depends on everything, right? There's several different factors we have to look at when we're looking at the prognosis of a case and how well we think it's going to turn out. So, look at the age. Generally, the most common dogs with reactivity are dogs between 9 months and 18 months or 2 years by the time they get to a trainer. During that window, it is very developmentally normal for a dog to have reactivity problems. Very normal, super common, the most common age for that type of thing to happen. Now, when we think about that, a lot of my humans will hit that point and then we'll throw a whole bunch of training at our dog. And the problem isn't the training, the problem is their brain can't process. So generally during that time, we sit back, and I encourage people to sit just in that foundation period until their dog is 2. Until their dog has shown several months of stable behavior before introducing new concepts, right? Because it's not necessarily that something's wrong with them, it's a phase that they're going through, and if you can make space for that phase and give boundaries, we can have a lot better success. So it depends on age, right? Depends on learning history. If I've got a dog, prognosis is going to be very different for a dog who's been barking at windows for 8 to 10 years versus a dog who just started last week. Learning history is very important. If I've got a dog who has a learning history that when I offer new behaviors, nothing happens, that's a dog who's not going to be looking for those stares, right? Whereas if I have a dog who's very used to when I'm wrong over here, I try something over here, that dog was going to have a better prognosis because they're going to be more willing to try and more willing to offer new behaviors, which therefore creates behavior change, blah, 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 blah. Down we go. Okay. The other piece that we check for prognosis is my human's abilities. Physical abilities, right? Can you physically do the assignments that are given? And the ability to ask for help when you can't. That is a skill that a lot of people need more of. And I really encourage people to ask questions. I say it all the time in these videos. Ask questions, right? The most common thing that'll happen is we'll be having a session, we'll be talking, things will make sense here, and then they'll go to grab the leash and do the thing, and they're like, I don't understand how to walk anymore. Nothing makes sense. That is a very normal human experience to learning these types of information. So please come back and ask the questions. When I grabbed the leash, this is what happened, right? So the human's ability to physically do what's asked and to ask for help when it's not working, both of those abilities are going to be crucial to the dog's prognosis because you're going to be the one doing the thing, right? The other thing to consider is how much time do you have? Some people are more busy than others. If you are more busy, you will have to be more creative in your reactivity solutions because you do not have the time to build up what you're trying to build up. There are lots of different types of creativity you can do there, but trying to just force more time or make more hours in the day is not a sustainable approach, which is not helpful to a reactive dog. And then the last bit of prognosis is what other baggage does this dog coming in with? Do we have a dog that also has seizures? Do you have a dog that also has another dog in the house? Do we have a new baby in the house? They have another. What else is going on in this dog's life? What other stuff is this dog carrying with it? Because that's going to affect the reactivity. If reactivity is alone the only thing wrong with the dog, prognosis goes up. If reactivity is coupled with a whole bunch of other stuff, we got maybe a little bit more to work through to get to that goal. So keeping all of that in mind when we're looking at, is my dog going to be better, right? So what does better look like? What are we looking for progress? I'm gonna drink because, yeah. I have no idea what time it is. I was trying to keep this short. Good, yeah, right on time, nice. So, progress points. We are looking for a decrease of duration and intensity first. The frequency of behavior will stay the same. It is the last thing to go. So they may still bark at the mailman, but instead of taking 20 minutes to settle, they maybe take 5. Instead of barking for 5 minutes, they bark for a minute and they stop. Those are all markers of progress, and we are on the right track. Okay? We are looking specifically for smoother and faster recovery after triggers. If you are seeing that, you are making progress. Now, caution, the order of delivery, I think I've drilled that into your guys' heads enough times at this point. I also want to warn people about the 5-week honeymoon bubble, okay? Reactive dogs are generally very smart because they're so sensitive and they're tracking everything. So a lot of times, if you do it right and you get a lot of clarity on board right away, within 3 to 4 weeks, you have a brand new dog and things are just going so great. So I thought I would just And that's when I see the biggest uptick of regressions happen, because things are going so great, so I thought I would just. At 5 weeks, there is no way your dog actually has generalized the skill to every situation you need it to. There's literally no way. Not enough time has passed. You could not have exposed them to everything and generalized it. So my general rule of thumb is, if you've started something, you're seeing a lot of progress, you're itching for that next step, and you're in that 4 to 6 week marker, when you think, I think we can just try, you can just send Renee a video. You can just post a video in the group, right? Don't just try to change things. Get confirmation. You're not going to be able to see everything on your own. Nobody can see everything on their own. If we could see everything on our own, we wouldn't need help, right? We're all smart humans. So expecting yourself to be able to know when to move to the next step without other people looking in, unrealistic and not very fair to you as a human. So make sure, before you start adding the next step, before you start taking down management, before you start putting safety risks in play, get a second opinion. Just throw it out there. See what people see. You might be surprised what people find out. Okay? Caution of multi-dogs. If you're not tracking that 5 week window, it changes things. Yeah. Multiple dogs, that changes things. We've got hype men, we've got dogs who redirect on each other, we've got social drift, we've got frustration. If you have more than one dog being reactive at a time, that is a complicating factor, that is a caution factor to keep in mind and to make sure to make adjustments for your specific dynamics. I can't say just because you have X number of dogs, you should do X protocol. There is none. You have to know the specifics of your dogs, what their motivators are, and what type of safeties they need to decrease frustration. Okay, so those are my caution. Quick recap before I wrap up today. You guys have been awesome. I'm so happy I can see the comments. It's way easier to do these lives when I can see the comments and engage with you guys. All right. We have had a ton of engagement in the group and 0 violations. Keep it up. I love this community. I love that we are not a community that fights or has to do anything. I don't know of any groups that have 450 comments in a month and 0 group violations. So keep it up. Please keep sending good people into the group. You're doing a great job. We're only 30 people away from 2.8 thousand. Big deal. Big deal. I will be putting a link to my summit presentation, the rewards video, the reinforcement video, and I'll put a link to the meds article that Lena Kaiser wrote for you guys, okay? Those will all be in my things. Reactivity was our topic today. Reactivity is big feelings about a change. It can be genetic, it can be trauma. It is not the only marker for intent to harm. That is the picture of reactivity we're operating under. It's usually visual and audio triggers. There are lots of different types. The most common type, I will say, is barrier. The treatment should be well-rounded. It should address all of the dog's needs, need-based first, then behavior pretty after. The prognosis depends on everything, right? And progress, we should look for at the end of the loop. If we're seeing a decrease of intensity, a shorter duration, we're making progress, you're on the right track, keep it up. Frequency goes away last. And be careful of that 5-week honeymoon bubble. I'm telling you. Once you're aware of it, it makes a huge difference. Okay, on that note, that's what I had to bring for you guys today. If you liked this, check out my course. I have a spicy dog communication course, and so far people are liking it. I'm really liking it. It has helped give my humans more support because I've been trying to say the same things to so many people and it get lost in translation. So I'm really excited to have this course, this backbone to be able to offer people to be like, here's your foundation, and then we can keep building from there. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. And do me a favor, in the comments, write down your biggest takeaway. What is the thing that you learned from today? What is something you're going to start trying tomorrow? What is your big takeaway? Those become my whys for why I keep doing these, and I love engaging with you guys. So thank you everybody for staying on today, and I look forward to our next one. Bye.